In the blueprint, a teenage boy drops out of high school in a freezing Chicago apartment. Not because he gave up, but because he had a plan. Zaire Carter's journey from broke mechanic to millionaire entrepreneur is just the beginning. As he builds Carter Customs into a national brand, he sets his sights on something bigger. Changing the game for kids like him. What starts in a garage becomes a movement, and a blueprint for rewriting the future. If you liked the video and subscribe to the channel, let's move on to our story. Enjoy watching. The heat had been out for 3 days. Zaire Carter stood in the kitchen, shivering in a hoodie with the sleeves rolled up, trying to get the pilot light under the ancient gas stove to stay lit. Every few seconds, a gust of wind from the cracked window near the sink cut through the apartment like a blade. Winter in Chicago didn't wait for anyone. It came swinging. His little sister Maya sat on the couch, wrapped in 2 blankets like a burrito, nose buried in a copy of Charlotte's Web. Every few minutes she coughed, the kind that rattled from her chest and left her gasping at the end. Asthma never took holidays. Their mother, Dion, burst in through the front door, arms full of groceries and frustration. "Zaire, I told you to stay off the gas stove. You trying to blow us up?" Zaire stood, brushing dust off his jeans. "Just trying to get some heat in here." "Yeah, well, put a hoodie on like normal people." "I got a hoodie on," he muttered, turning away. "Just don't work like a furnace." She dropped the bags on the counter and rubbed her forehead. "Lord, give me patience." Zaire knew better than to talk back. His mom worked 2 jobs, cleaning offices in the mornings, waitressing at a hotel restaurant in the evenings. She was always tired, always moving. And when she did stop, she worried. Rent, food, Maya's medicine. The flickering light above the bathroom mirror that had been flickering since September. "Any mail?" she asked. Zaire hesitated. "Yeah." "Anything from the landlord?" He opened the junk drawer and handed her a thin white envelope with red lettering. She didn't even open it. Just stared at it, then slid it under the microwave like hiding it might make it disappear. Dinner was cereal. Again. Frosted Flakes, watered-down milk. Maya didn't complain. She never did. But Zaire noticed she pushed her bowl away after 3 bites. "I'm not hungry," she said. "You gotta eat," Dion said gently. "You need strength." "I don't want to throw up again." Zaire hated this. Hated how quiet his sister had become. Hated the way his mom barely touched her own food. Hated that a box of cereal was a meal and a red envelope meant danger. Later that night, when Dion left for her second shift, Zaire sat at the kitchen table with a busted iPad and a half-broken socket wrench. The screen flickered as he scrolled YouTube tutorials on how to fix a cracked oil pan. Tomorrow, old Mr. Tucker from down the hall was gonna pay him $50 to patch up his 2006 Impala. It wasn't much, but it was something. He looked over at Maya asleep on the couch, breathing soft and slow. He remembered what the pharmacist said last time they were late on the inhaler refill. You can't miss doses. Asthma isn't a game. Everything in him clenched. It wasn't supposed to be like this. He was supposed to be worried about algebra homework or prom or whatever normal 10th grade kids worried about. Instead, he worried about gas bills and cracked gaskets and the sound his mom made when she cried in the bathroom with the faucet running so no one could hear. School the next day was background noise. Zaire sat in the back of class, hoodie up, headphones in, sketching carburetors in the margins of his notebook while his English teacher droned on about metaphors. The only metaphor he cared about was survival. There was nothing poetic about being broke. During lunch, he slipped out the back door and took the bus to Tony's Auto, an old repair shop on 79th where he hung out on weekends. Tony was in his 50s, bald and always yelling at somebody, but he let Zaire sweep the floors, hand him tools and ask too many questions. He even paid him cash under the table sometimes. Called him Short Fuse, because of the time Zaire lit a rag on fire trying to clean an engine. "Thought school was in session," Tony said when Zaire walked in. "It is." Tony raised an eyebrow. "Then what you doing here?" Zaire looked him dead in the eye. "Learning." Tony snorted. "Well, grab a rag, Short Fuse. Customers waiting on their bends." That night, back home, Zaire opened the fridge. Empty except for a half bottle of ketchup, a single egg and a jar of pickles. He stared at the door for a long time. Then he walked to the bathroom and turned on the faucet just enough to drown out the sound. He could hear his mom's voice on the phone in the next room. "I just need another week, Mr. Langley. I got a second job now and my son's helping where he can." Zaire sat on the toilet lid, clenched fists on his knees. This wasn't working. School was wasting hours he didn't have. His mom was breaking herself in half for pennies. His sister couldn't breathe half the time. And nobody was coming to save them. He didn't tell anyone. Not that night, not the next morning. But 2 days later, he walked into his school office with forged papers and told the secretary he was transferring to a vocational program. She nodded, barely looking at him. By the time his mom found out, it was already done. The lie was paper thin, but it worked. Zaire stood across from the high school secretary's desk with a folded permission slip in his hand. His handwriting was shaky, but he'd copied enough of his mom's bills and notes to forge her signature well enough. He kept his eyes low, his face blank. Vocational program? The secretary said without looking up. She tapped at her keyboard with 2 fingers. You sure about this, baby? He didn't flinch. Yes, ma'am. All right, she said, dragging out the word. You'll be withdrawn at the end of the week. You got a plan, right? Yeah, Zaire lied. Whole blueprint. Tony looked up from under the hood of a Lexus when Zaire walked in the next day, backpack slung over one shoulder and eyes sharp like windshield glass in the sun. What are you doing here in the middle of the damn day? Tony barked. School on fire? Zaire dropped the backpack near the front counter. I'm done with it. Tony straightened, wiping his hands on a greasy towel. The hell you mean, done? I dropped out. Wanna work full-time. I'll sweep, clean, buff, run parts, do whatever. Tony blinked. You serious right now? I got a family, man. Rent's due, lights flickering, fridge empty. I ain't got time for algebra when my little sister can't breathe at night. The older man squinted. You think this place is gonna save you? Zaire shrugged. Don't need saving. I need skills. You always say the streets eat boys like me. So either I get swallowed or I get sharp. I'd rather get sharp. Tony sucked in a breath like he was about to curse, then sighed instead. You know cars. Zaire stepped forward. The difference between a cold knock and a bent rod? Yeah. I've been listening. Tony tossed him a set of coveralls. Then stopped talking and grab a wrench. The first few weeks were brutal. Tony didn't go easy on him. No more explaining things slowly or stopping to show where the camshaft sat. Now it was, grab me a torque wrench, or pull the valve cover on bay 3. If Zaire didn't know what he was doing, Tony would holler so loud the bolts shook. Zaire got oil burns on his forearms. Cut his knuckles open on engine mounts. Got grease under his nails he couldn't scrub out for days. He was exhausted, but alive. Each night he came home sore, reeking of rubber and sweat, but there'd be milk in the fridge and enough money to cover Maya's meds. Dion didn't say much. At first she thought he was just skipping school. Then 2 weeks in she got the letter. Zaire came home late, covered in axle grease, and found her sitting on the couch, letter in hand. Maya was asleep in her arms. You forged my name? Her voice was low, deadly quiet. Zaire froze. Mama? You forged my name to quit school? He set his bag down. I didn't quit. I switched paths. Dion stood slowly. You think you've grown? You think, 'cause you changed a tire or two you a man now? I'm helping. By throwing away your education? Zaire's voice cracked. We didn't have heat for 3 days, Ma. Maya couldn't breathe. You work 2 jobs and still cry in the bathroom. You think homework gonna fix that? She flinched like he'd hit her. Don't you ever talk to me like I'm not doing everything I can. Zaire stepped forward, gentler this time. I know you are. That's why I'm doing this. I can make real money, Ma. I'm learning stuff that matters. For a long second she just stared at him. Then without warning she slapped him. His face stung. He didn't move. She collapsed into him a moment later, sobbing into his chest. You're just a boy. He held her. I know. But I'm all we got. Zaire threw himself into the work harder than ever. By month 2 he could strip a transmission blindfolded. He picked up customer lingo, learned to upsell brake pads without sounding like a scammer, and could eyeball a damaged bumper down to the millimeter. He made friends with the other mechanics, Dre, who used to boost cars back in the day, Luis, who brought homemade empanadas every Wednesday, and Big Cheryl, a towering woman who could outlift most men in the shop. You got hands, kid, Cheryl told him one day. And a brain. Don't let him waste either. One afternoon, a customer rolled up in a 2015 Jaguar XF. White. Chrome trim. Clean as a whistle. Rich dude in designer shades stepped out, holding a latte like it was gold. "Tony around?" he asked. Tony waved from the back. "Zaire'll take care of you." Zaire did a full walk around, crouched by the tires, ran a diagnostic and came back with a list of fixes. Front suspension's uneven, oil pans leaking, and the brakes'll squeal like banshees in 2 weeks. The guy laughed. "You a mechanic or a psychic?" Zaire just smiled. "I'm whatever the car needs." That night, Tony pulled him aside. "You're good," he said simply. Zaire wiped his hands. "I try." "You do more than that. You work like the rents due yesterday." Zaire gave a wry smile. "That's 'cause it usually is." Tony leaned against the tool chest. "You ever think about where this could go? Fixing cars? Running your own shop? Owning something?" Zaire hesitated. "I mean, yeah. But I just got started." Tony nodded. "Start dreaming bigger. Skill gets you paid. Vision gets you free." Weeks passed. Zaire bought groceries. Paid the ComEd bill. Replaced Maya's busted inhaler without blinking at the price. One Sunday morning he stood on the back porch, staring out over rooftops dusted in snow, breathing in the cold. He wasn't in school. He wasn't normal. But he was building something. One bolt at a time. The first time Zaire rebuilt a carburetor, he did it wrong. Twice. Tony didn't yell though. Just stood behind him, arms crossed, nodding as Zaire cursed under his breath and wiped sweat from his forehead. "You know how you learn short fuse?" Tony said. "By getting it right," Zaire grumbled. "Nope. You learn by breaking it first. Then you build it back better." Zaire didn't respond, just turned the part over again in his hands, tracing the metal like Braille, feeling every curve and flaw until it made sense. From that moment on, Zaire became obsessed. He stayed after hours, watching old YouTube tutorials on transmission rebuilds and engine swaps, scribbling diagrams in a beat-up notebook he kept in his back pocket like scripture. When other mechanics went home, he stayed. When the shop lights dimmed, he kept the garage door cracked just enough to let moonlight in while he practiced rewiring headlights or resetting ECU codes. He wanted to know everything. Not just how to fix a car, but how it thought, how it breathed. One Friday afternoon, Cheryl leaned against the wall, arms folded, watching him gut the interior of a 2010 Range Rover. "You taking this whole dash out for a simple fuse replacement?" she asked. Zaire, knee-deep in wires and trim panels, didn't look up. "Already had the panel off. Figured I'd trace the full harness while I'm in here. See what else is going." Cheryl laughed. "Boy, you're dangerous." Dre whistled from the other bay. "Nah, he's something else. Kid's got car blood." Tony wandered over, chewing a toothpick. "He's learning what most men don't figure out, till they 40. Mastery ain't about speed. It's about attention." Zaire just grinned. "Attention don't cost nothing. But it pays." By month 4 he could rebuild a starter blindfolded and quote torque specs from memory. Tony started giving him more difficult jobs. German imports, old Corvettes, even one vintage Rolls-Royce that the owner swore only 2 people in the city could fix. Zaire made it hum. Word spread. Old heads started dropping by just to see the kid with the magic hands. Some brought their cars. Some just brought coffee and sat in folding chairs while he worked. "You see how he listens to the engine before he even lifts the hood?" one said. "That ain't training. That's instinct." Outside of work, Zaire's life stayed small but steady. He paid rent. Made sure Maya took her meds. Cleaned the apartment when Dion was too tired to move. Every now and then, his mom would sit at the table and watch him across the room, not angry anymore, just distant, maybe even a little proud. "You're changing," she said one night as he wiped down his boots. Zaire looked up. "Good or bad?" "I ain't sure yet," she said. "But you ain't just my baby no more." One day, a sleek 2021 BMW i8 pulled up to the garage. Wrapped in matte black with cherry red rims, it looked like a spaceship. Out stepped a man in a 3-piece suit and braided locks, mid-30s, sharp as a blade. "Which one of y'all is the mechanic?" he asked, scanning the crew. Tony pointed. That'd be him. The man looked at Zaire. You even old enough to drive this thing?" Zaire didn't blink. "Old enough to make it purr." The man smiled. "Name's Kwame Rhodes. I run a few tech firms out west. My assistant said y'all were the best in town. I'll be the judge of that." Zaire opened the hood without another word. The issue was subtle, an intermittent loss of power on acceleration. Most mechanics would have blamed it on a dirty throttle body or bad gas. Zaire ran a full diagnostic, then popped the intake open and found a tiny pressure leak in one of the intercooler pipes. Airline crack. Almost invisible. "This what's costing you horsepower," he said. Kwame whistled. "Damn. I been to 2 dealerships. They didn't catch that." Zaire shrugged. "They ain't me." Kwame handed him a crisp $100 tip and a business card. "Keep building. You got something special." Zaire didn't look at the card until later. Kwame Rhodes, founder, Cortex Dynamics. He slipped it into his back pocket without a word. Tony watched from the corner. "You know what that is?" he asked later. "An opportunity?" Tony shook his head. "Nah. That's validation." Zaire frowned. "Ain't that the same thing?" "Nope. Validation tells you you're already great. Opportunity means someone's about to use you." Zaire absorbed that. "So what do I do?" Tony leaned in. "Know your worth. And charge double." As the weeks turned into months, Zaire's reputation grew. Not just as a mechanic, but as the mechanic. He started naming every car he worked on. Gave them personalities. Some purred like cats. Some roared like dogs. Some were stubborn old mules that wouldn't start unless you talked to them nice. He started designing custom builds, neon underlights, sound systems synced to RPMs, carbon fiber hoods with graffiti-style paint. And he kept it clean, no cutting corners, no cheap fixes. People respected that. One rainy night, Maya tiptoed into his room while he was sketching a turbo system on a pad. "Zai," she whispered. "You busy?" He looked up. "What's up?" She crawled into his lap, blanket still wrapped around her. "You smell like gasoline." He smiled. "That's how you know I'm working. You fix everything," she mumbled sleepily. "Not everything." She yawned. "Almost everything." Zaire kissed the top of her head. "One day I'ma fix the whole world." The flyer was cheap, printed on neon yellow paper and taped to the side of a gas station vending machine. Zaire spotted it while grabbing a Mountain Dew and nearly walked right past. Chicago Torque Trials. $100,000 grand prize. Custom build showdown. No teams. No kits. Just you, your machine and your mind. At the bottom. Build different. He tore it down and stared at it the whole ride back to the garage. "You out of your mind," Tony said, eyes squinting through cigarette smoke. "That's a pro competition. I ain't scared of pros. You ain't even got a car." Zaire held up a key. "Got one now. Junkyard out near Joliet. 89 Mustang GT rusted to hell. They let it go for $700. Tony laughed dry and low. "That car won't run." "Not yet." The Mustang looked like it had been resurrected from a scrapyard apocalypse. Dented hood, cracked windshield, mismatched doors, tires bald as a preacher's head. Zaire rolled it into Tony's garage after hours and parked it in the far bay like it was sacred. Over the next 4 weeks he lived in that space. Slept on a cot. Ate from vending machines. Every bolt, every wire, every panel, he touched it all. He stripped the Mustang down to its bones. Gutted the gas engine. Rebuilt it from the chassis up into a full electric beast. Dual motor layout, 400 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. A vintage body hiding a modern heart. The cherry on top? A matte gunmetal wrap with hand-painted flames that shimmered in light like liquid silver. He named it Ghost. The torque trials were held in an abandoned airstrip turned makeshift arena on Chicago's South Side. Rows of floodlights. A live DJ. Food trucks and drone cameras. Hundreds of spectators, thousands watching online. Zaire rolled up to the gate in Ghost, barely able to breathe. A row of other competitors pulled in behind him. One had a $1 million Porsche GT3 modded with gold-plated rims. Another drove a custom Lumbo with scissor doors that opened like wings. People gawked at Zaire's ride. Until he popped the hood. Then they shut up. The contest had 3 parts. Performance trial, speed, braking, cornering. Design judging, craftsmanship, innovation. Live fix. Competitors had to diagnose and fix a randomized fault planted in their car. Zaire wiped his hands and cracked his knuckles. "Let's work." Performance trial. Ghost flew. It screamed down the strip, tires biting into asphalt, electric motors whining like symphonies in reverse. Judges raised eyebrows. A few mouths dropped open. Second fastest lap time of the day, behind only the Lumbo. But his cost less than a month's rent. Design judging. The judges circled his Mustang like archaeologists studying treasure. This is a Frankenstein, one murmured. Old school Detroit frame. Tesla internals? Zaire nodded. With some tweaks. Reinforced subframe, custom ECU, regenerative brakes mapped to pedal pressure. Another judge touched the hand-painted flame detailing. Who did the wrap? I did. You an artist or a mechanic? Zaire smiled. Both. Live fix. All competitors had to step away while staff sabotaged one part of each car. Then 30 minutes. Tools, wits, adrenaline. Zaire ran diagnostics. The system spat out a voltage drop in the rear controller. Most would swap the unit. He rewired the ground, bypassed a corroded line, and got Ghost running with 6 minutes to spare. A judge leaned in. That's not just smart, that's elegant. At the final ceremony, 10 competitors stood in a row. Cameras flashed. Drones hovered. Zaire stood still. Grease on his jeans. Hoodie stained with sweat. No fancy sponsor jacket. No gold chains. Just grit. And the winner of the 2025 Torque Trials, the MC shouted, with the cleanest hybrid build we've ever seen. Zaire Carter and Ghost. The crowd erupted. $100,000 flashed on the screen. Confetti exploded into the air. Zaire didn't cry. He didn't scream. He just looked up, whispered, "We made it, Ma," and smiled. Backstage, someone tapped his shoulder. A clean-cut man in a blue tailored suit handed him a card. Kwame Rhodes, he said. We met before. Cortex Dynamics. Zaire nodded. Yeah. BMW guy. Kwame grinned. You impressed me then. You floored me today. What's next? Zaire glanced down at the check in his hand. I build something that's mine. Kwame's eyes lit up. You ever need backing, mentorship, or press, call me. You ain't just a mechanic. You're a movement. Later that night, Zaire drove home in Ghost, windows down, city lights washing over the dash. He parked in front of the apartment, crept inside quietly. Maya was asleep on the couch, mouth open, clutching her inhaler like a teddy bear. Dion stood in the kitchen, her eyes red. She looked him up and down. You won. He nodded. How much? He held up the check. She didn't speak for a moment. Then she walked over and wrapped her arms around him tighter than she ever had before. You're gonna change everything, she whispered. Zaire didn't say anything. He didn't have to. Zaire didn't sleep for 2 days after winning the Torque Trials. He stared at the $100,000 check like it might melt in his hands. He took a photo of it, framed a copy, and locked the real one in a drawer under his mattress. But he didn't spend a dime, not yet. Instead, he built a spreadsheet, made a blueprint, drew up a plan. He wasn't about to blow the bag. He was about to build a kingdom. The first thing he did was pull up to Tony's shop in Ghost and park right in the center bay. Tony didn't look up from the engine he was working on. So what's the move, short fuse? I'm opening a shop. Tony finally glanced at him. With what experience? Zaire smiled. With yours. Tony laughed. You trying to poach me? Nah. I'm trying to pay homage. Tony folded his arms, measuring him. You really think you ready? Zaire didn't blink. I know I am. Tony looked at him for a long time. Then he nodded. Then stop talking, and go sign a lease. The shop was a rundown warehouse in Bronzeville. Pigeons lived in the rafters. The concrete was cracked. The walls were tagged with graffiti that had faded into ghosts. Zaire saw potential. High ceilings. Wide bays. Skylights. A freight door that could fit a Hummer. The bones were perfect. He signed the lease that week, 18 months, low rent, month to month after. The owner didn't ask questions. Zaire paid 6 months in advance. Then came the name. Carter Customs. He spray painted it on the front door himself. Not flashy. Just bold. Like him. Zaire spent $30,000 renovating. Not with contractors, with his own hands. Maya painted walls. Dion mopped floors. Dre and Cheryl came over on weekends to help install lifts and lighting. He spent nights ordering tools, building the website, setting up appointment systems, designing merch, setting up a before and after wall. He bought 3 shop uniforms, all black coveralls with a sleek silver logo embroidered on the chest. And just like that, Carter Customs opened. The first car through the bay doors was a blacked-out Range Rover owned by a Bulls player's cousin. "Instagram sent me," the guy said. "You the boy with the Mustang?" Zaire nodded. "What you need?" "Whole makeover." I wanted to whisper and scream at the same time. Zaire grinned. "Say less." He wrapped it in pearl white with black satin rims. Upgraded the sound system. Added ambient lighting synced to engine RPM. When the client picked it up, he FaceTimed 5 people on the spot. By the end of the week, Zaire had 6 new appointments. By the end of the month, he had a wait list. Zaire didn't just fix cars, he transformed them. He turned a Toyota Camry into a street-legal beast with custom pipes and suede seats. He rebuilt an old-school Impala for a retired Navy vet, restoring it to the exact color it was the day he came home from war. He even customized a wheelchair-accessible SUV for a disabled rapper, adding automated seats and voice-activated controls. People started calling him the car whisperer. Local papers picked up the story. Young dropout redefines luxury custom culture. South Side genius revving up the industry. Zaire smiled but stayed low-key. "I'm just getting started." He built the business on 4 rules. No cutting corners. If it's not built to last, it doesn't leave the shop. No disrespect. Every customer gets treated like family, unless they act like fools. No shame in your story. He hired people no one else would. Ex-cons, GED holders, undocumented strivers. If they could work, they had a place. Know your value. No discounts just because you're young, black, or different. "I charge what I'm worth," he said in one interview. "And it's worth every dollar." By month 3 he had hired a full team. Big Cheryl as lead engine tech. Dre handling paint and body kits. Luis doing interiors and electrical. Maya, now 15, running the front desk after school like a pro. And Dion? She finally quit her second job. Took Saturdays off. Started smiling again. One morning, she brought coffee to the shop and stood at the garage entrance, watching the crew work. "I don't get all this engine stuff," she said softly. "But I know heart when I see it. And this place got heart." Zaire hugged her, grease and all. "So do you, ma. I just built around it." One night, a Porsche Panamera pulled up outside with tinted windows. Kwame Rhodes stepped out, suit crisp, smile razor sharp. "Been watching," he said. "Your brand's catching fire." Zaire wiped his hands. "Appreciate that. You ever thought about franchising? Expansion?" Zaire leaned against the bay door. "I'm thinking about building a movement, not a chain." Kwame grinned. "Same thing, if you do it right." He handed over a thick envelope. "Here's a seed investment. No strings. Just respect." Zaire opened it, $50,000. Kwame added, "Use it when you're ready to level up." Zaire nodded. "I'll make it count." By the end of the year, Carter Customs was pulling in more per month than most mechanic shops made in 3. Zaire had gone from a dropout in dirty jeans to the most talked-about custom builder in the Midwest. But he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Every night, he closed the shop with the same ritual. He'd run his hand over the steel logo on the wall, whisper, "You came from nothing. So build something." And then he'd go home, tired, wired, and already dreaming about the next level. By 21, Zaire Carter had 3 Carter Customs locations. One in Chicago. One in Atlanta. One in Detroit. Each shop had the same vibe: exposed brick, chrome tool cabinets, soft trap music floating through the air, and black excellence in every corner. Clean uniforms, no grease on the floor, no attitude at the door. His shops didn't just fix cars, they set standards. But success came loud. And loud made enemies. It started with a Yelp bomb. Overnight the reviews tanked. Unprofessional. Scuffed my rims. Rude front desk. Fake names. Bots. One even claimed Zaire stole an entire engine block. Customers started canceling appointments. Sponsors paused calls. His team panicked. "Somebody trying to bury you, Z," Cheryl said, slamming a wrench down on the bench. Zaire didn't flinch. Then we dig deeper. He hired a digital investigator who traced the attacks to a national repair chain, Griffin Auto Performance, owned by a white billionaire with dealerships across the Midwest. Zaire posted a calm Instagram video. "Funny how the hate only shows up when you start to shine. But Carter Customs ain't built on likes. We built on loyalty. Come see for yourself." The video hit 2.4 million views. By Friday, appointments were double. Then came betrayal. The Atlanta manager, a smooth talker named Daryl Zaire had hired from a LinkedIn referral, was skimming money off the top, pocketing deposits, ordering knockoff parts. It took months to find out. When Zaire flew down and walked into the shop unannounced, he saw a customer screaming, pointing at a warped spoiler, and a mechanic wiping tears from her face. Zaire confronted Daryl that night. "You think I wouldn't find out?" Zaire asked. Daryl shrugged. "You too busy to notice. You a star now, Z. You don't run this, your name just on it." Zaire took a deep breath. "Pack your stuff. You're done." Daryl laughed. "You don't even have a backup. You're gonna fold without me." Zaire smiled cold. "Nah, I'm gonna rebuild without you. That's what I do." He called Amina Ford the next morning. She'd once worked at McKinsey, left to launch her own startup and mentored black entrepreneurs. Zaire had met her once at a youth business conference but never asked for help. Now he did. She stepped in as COO within a week. By month's end, the systems were tighter, the operations cleaner, and every dollar was accounted for. "You're a builder, Zaire," she told him. "I'm the blueprint keeper." They made a good team. But then, his mother collapsed. In the middle of washing dishes, Dion gripped her chest and fell to her knees. Maya found her. Called 911 shaking. Zaire flew home and didn't leave the hospital for 3 days. Heart complications. Stress. Overwork. "Mr. Carter," the doctor said, "she's stable now, but if she doesn't slow down, next time we might not get this lucky." Zaire sat by her bedside, guilt crawling up his spine like oil on fire. She opened her eyes slowly. "You always moving?" she whispered. "Even as a baby. Always moving." Zaire wiped her forehead. "I thought if I just kept going I could fix everything." She smiled weakly. "You have fixed everything. Now slow down and enjoy it." He took a week off. Canceled meetings. Turned off his phone. Spent mornings making pancakes for Maya and afternoons sitting in silence with his mom, watching old sitcoms she liked. And one afternoon she looked at him and said, "I see your father in you." Zaire stiffened. He never asked about the man. "He wasn't bad," she said. "Just scared of becoming something." You ran toward it." Zaire nodded. "I was scared too." She smiled. "You still did it anyway. That's what makes you a man." When he returned to work he came back harder, but different. He cut the dead weight. Raised wages. Built a wellness fund for employees. If your kid needed glasses or your rent was late, Carter Customs had your back. He even paid for Luis's son to get into coding boot camp. "This ain't just a shop," Zaire told his team one day. "It's a safety net." Then came the moment. A single mom rolled up in an old beat-up Honda Civic. Hood tied with zip ties. Windows stuck halfway open. "I know this ain't your usual," she said, embarrassed. "But I heard you sometimes do good deeds. I need something. Anything. It's how I get to work. Pick up my baby." Zaire looked at the car. Then looked at her. "Leave it with us," he said. 3 days later she came back to find her Civic fully rebuilt. Fresh paint, new tires, Bluetooth radio, fully detailed. Zaire handed her the keys on Instagram Live. She cried. Hugged him. Called him a miracle. The video went viral. 8.3 million views in 72 hours. CNN called. Nike called. And people started whispering something new. This man is more than a mechanic. But Zaire didn't care about the press. He cared about what came next. He stood one night in the center of his original garage, the ghost Mustang behind him, Maya sitting on the workbench, legs swinging. "You ever think we'd get here?" she asked. "I used to dream it," he said. "Now I'm designing the sequel." "What's it called?" He looked up. "Legacy." Zaire turned 22 the same week Carter Customs crossed $10 million in revenue. He didn't throw a party. He threw a hiring fair. It took place inside the original Bronzeville garage, now renovated with polished floors, LED ceiling lights, and a 20-foot mural of Zaire's ghost Mustang on the wall. The caption underneath read, "Built different." 50 people walked in that day. 20 walked out with job offers. 10 were ex-offenders. All were hungry. Zaire stood in the center of it all, arms crossed, watching the interviews unfold. Amina walked over, tablet in hand. "This is how you scale and serve." Zaire grinned. We can't just make money. We gotta make room. She nodded. Next stop, nationwide. A week later, the numbers were official. Carter Customs was now the fastest-growing black-owned auto customization company in the country. And Zaire Carter? Net worth, $1.3 million. He found out while eating takeout in the garage with Maya. She choked on a fry when she saw the headline. From dropout to millionaire, the rise of Zaire Carter. He stared at the screen like it didn't belong to him. I don't even know what to do with $1 million, he muttered. Maya popped another fry in her mouth. Maybe buy some furniture that ain't from Craigslist. That weekend he drove back to Tony's old shop, the same cracked garage where it all started. But this time it wasn't to fix a car. It was to say goodbye. Tony was in hospice care, lungs failing, voice worn down to a whisper. Zaire sat beside him, holding his hand. You did it, Tony said, barely audible. Told you you'd outgrow this place. Zaire smiled. I still got grease under my nails. Tony chuckled. Good. Don't let that part die. Zaire's voice cracked. You believed in me when school didn't? When the world didn't? Tony coughed. Nah, I didn't believe. I saw. You were always built for more. Zaire squeezed his hand. I bought the shop, Tony. Kept your name on the sign. Tony's, St. 1989. The old man's eyes welled. You keep building, boy. But don't forget where the first bolt went. 1 month later, Zaire stood on stage at the Forbes Black Founders Summit in New York City. The room was packed with investors, CEOs, influencers, and camera crews. Bright lights. Polished floors. Thin smiles. He wore a charcoal gray suit and black Air Force Ones. No tie. Gold CC pin on his lapel. He wasn't nervous until he saw the panel lineup. Sitting beside him was Michael Griffin, the billionaire who had tried to sabotage Carter Customs months ago. The host turned to Griffin. What's your take on the rise of disruptors like Carter? Griffin smirked. I think it's admirable. But let's be honest. Most of these stories are about luck. A couple viral videos. A moment in the sun. Sustainability takes real infrastructure. The crowd murmured. Zaire leaned forward. Let me say something, he said calmly. The room went quiet. I couldn't read the Wall Street Journal growing up. I couldn't even finish To Kill a Mockingbird in school. He paused. But I read torque curves. I read brake pressure. I read my mama's face when the fridge was empty. And now, he looked out over the crowd. I write paychecks. I write partnerships. I write futures. Thunderous applause erupted. Cameras flashed. Griffin stared at the floor. After the panel, a group of students approached him, black kids mostly. Hoodies and afros. Eyes bright. You made us believe, one said. They don't teach this in school. Zaire shook their hands. That's why I'm about to teach it outside school. They looked confused. He smiled. You'll see. 2 weeks later, the announcement dropped on every major news outlet. Zaire Carter to open free trade schools across underserved cities. Focus: mechanics, financial literacy, entrepreneurship. Name: the Carter Academy for Young Builders. At the press conference, Zaire stood in front of the first campus, a renovated school on the south side of Chicago. New paint, chrome signs, solar panels on the roof. He stepped to the mic, eyes on the young kids in the front row. I couldn't read, but you should read. Read books. Read people. Read contracts. Read rooms. And then rewrite the world. This ain't just about cars. It's about creation. Let's build. After the cameras packed up and the crowd left, he walked the halls alone. Peered into a classroom filled with brand new tools, donated books, laptops, and blueprints of custom engines. He saw his 13-year-old self in every chair. And then he heard Maya's voice behind him. You really did it, she said. Zaire nodded. Not yet. She raised a brow. There's more? He smiled. Always. 3 years after the first Carter Academy opened its doors, there were 12 across the country. Chicago, Detroit, Atlanta, Baltimore, Cleveland, Houston, Newark, Memphis, all in neighborhoods where schools were closing and futures were shrinking. Zaire opened doors instead. Each Carter Academy had its own garage, its own tech lab, its own bank simulation room where kids learned how to read a loan document before they ever applied for one. The motto was carved in steel above every entrance. Build yourself. then build the world. Zaire didn't teach daily, but he showed up often. Sometimes unannounced, in jeans and a hoodie, hands greasy from a side project. He'd walk through classrooms like a ghost of grit, asking questions most adults didn't. What's your dream build? How much should you never accept on a payday loan? What's your backup if your first plan flops? He made kids think. Made them hustle. Made them believe. One morning in Cleveland, a 12-year-old girl stopped him in the hallway. You really dropped out? He nodded. Didn't mean I dropped off. She smiled shyly. My big brother's in prison. He used to work on cars. I think if he had a place like this, he wouldn't be there. Zaire knelt down to her level. Then you build one, he said. So no one else ends up where he did. She nodded. I will. The media tried to spin him into a myth. The millionaire mechanic. From Greece to glory. The street genius. Zaire shrugged off the headlines. He didn't need the praise. He needed progress. He measured success by hands raised in class. By kids learning how to start LLCs at 16. By moms calling in to say their sons were finally showing up for something. He didn't just fix broken cars anymore. He fixed broken belief. Back home, his mother lived in a cozy townhouse 2 blocks from Maya's college campus. Her blood pressure was normal. Her smile came easier. And she finally stopped trying to work 2 jobs. One night over dinner, she looked across the table and whispered, You saved us. Zaire shook his head. You held us together. I just built on top of that. He bought himself one real splurge, a glass-walled house overlooking Lake Michigan. But inside it wasn't marble and gold. It was workbenches, chalkboards, models of engines and 3D printed car parts. The original Ghost Mustang sat on a rotating platform in the middle of the living room, preserved like art. He called it the lab. Not a mansion. Not a trophy. Just a new starting line. One rainy Sunday afternoon, he stood on the rooftop, the lake glinting in the distance, hands deep in his jacket pockets. Amina walked up beside him, holding 2 mugs of tea. You did it, she said. Zaire shook his head. We did it. She raised an eyebrow. You ever going to slow down? He took the mug. I'll slow down when every kid on the south side knows they can start a business before they can drive. When shop class is on the same level as AP Bio. When every brother coming home from prison can walk into a Carter Academy and leave with a second chance. Amina grinned. So, never. Zaire smirked. Exactly. Later that week, he visited the first Carter Academy again, Bronzeville campus. The one that started it all. He walked the halls slowly, boots echoing on the tile. In one classroom, students were designing custom EV kits for community buses. In another, a group was presenting mock business pitches to local investors. He stepped into the auditorium last. There, a mural had been painted across the entire back wall. It was him, younger, hoodie on, welding sparks flying around his silhouette. Below it, a quote in huge black lettering. I couldn't read. You should read. Read books. Read contracts. Read yourself. Then rewrite the world. That night, he sat alone in the garage after everyone left, beside the original Mustang. He ran his hand along the hood and thought about everything. The gas stove that wouldn't light, Maya coughing on the couch, his mom crying behind closed doors, Tony barking from across the bay. All of it part of the engine. All of it fuel. He smiled to himself, then whispered, I didn't just build cars. I built the blueprint. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video.